Welcome again to the Benster Show as we come back with another exciting episode. And today we are listening to the voice of foreigners. As foreigners reply in South Africa, we know that in this day and age, the race card is no longer working. But foreigners are now featuring strongly in the political arena. So I'm with my guest, Jonathan Rothschild. And Jonathan, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
And thank you for coming.
Absolutely, thank you.
Yeah, please do tell us, who is Jonathan?
Jonathan Rothschild is an investor in Africa. I'm the chairman of a company called Geneva Signature Holdings, which have a huge stake of investment in Africa and in South Africa. And Jonathan is very involved with trying to ease the tension with regard to foreigners. And I find that the issue with regard to foreigners in South Africa, with groups like Gates & McKenzie and Operation Dudula, is too much focused on African foreigners. I brought along my passport to say that I'm also a foreigner. I'm born in Israel, but I've got a British passport, but nobody's fighting people like myself because I can afford to pay the 600,000 Rand business permit to come into South Africa. And my anger is that African, and especially Zimbabweans, they are focusing on Zimbabweans because these are the marginalized group that can't afford to pay the bribes.
They can't afford to pay the bribes. And I need to say this, that you say you brought your own passport.
Yes.
To prove
Yes.
that you are a foreigner yourself.
Yes.
And you've got a British passport.
Yes.
And you were born in Israel.
Yes.
And you say, especially the Zimbabweans, pay a heavy price because they do not have means to pay the bribe.
That's correct.
But somebody will say they are here in their hundreds of thousands.
They are African.
They are African.
They are African. If you go to America, there's hundreds of thousands of different parts of America, Mexicans,
Yes.
Puerto Ricans, that's in America.
And so, I mean, how did you come to the sense of you becoming the voice of the foreigners in South Africa?
How did I come to it? I've been in South Africa for 22 years, coming in and out in South Africa for 22 years. And when the ZEP issue came up to say they're no longer renewing the ZEP permits, my staff, 30% of my staff makeup is foreigners, and a good majority of them are Zimbabweans. So when the Minister of Home Affairs decided to say that he's not renewing the permits anymore, I had to get involved because I'm about to lose my workforce, and workforce that I rely on, and South Africans cannot replace them.
So don't you think now you are answering the call from South Africans who say, no, these foreigners are taking our job?
I just said South Africans can't replace them.
Yeah, but then in other words, you're saying to me that, I mean, South Africans are incompetent. Only foreigners can render what they are doing to your business. And again, you are not the only one who has that mentality. There's so many people out there who share the same sentiments as you.
I'm a doctor by profession.
Okay.
Besides being a businessman. So when you have a medical professional, and I studied neurology, I'm a surgeon. When you have a professional state like that, what happens is people will choose you according to where you come from to say, okay, the best neurologists come from Switzerland.
Okay.
We need to use the best.
Okay.
Because of the experience I have in that country. So you will fly to Switzerland. Your deputy president flew to Russia to treat his terminal illness. He chose to go to Russia. He didn't come to South Africa, who's also got doctors. He went there for a specialized group to deal with his sickness.
Okay.
Exactly in South Africa, when you have a certain sector in your business sectors, hospitality industry, food and beverage industry, we find that the Zimbabweans, Malawians are the best in that industry, to serve that industry. And it's time we accept that.
Okay, so you spoke about the ZEP permits.
Yes.
How many permits are there for foreigners?
There's quite a few. I mean, there's a relative permit.
Yeah.
There's for studies. There's about 9 different permits.
About 9 different permits.
Then you have asylum, and then you
Yeah.
also have refugee status.
And so how long do you think the ZEP permits must last?
To be honest with you, I'm taking the matter. We are busy taking the matter to court, so I cannot really talk about the merits of it because it's sub judice.
Yeah.
But I'm with the opinion that all foreigners in South Africa currently need to get documented. So all these foreigners that's in South Africa, whether they came here legally or crossed the border because of desperation, they need to be documented.
And so when you say illegally,
no, I don't say illegally.
No, I mean you say whether they came legally or illegally. Mm-hmm. So this is where the problem lies. That some people came here and they followed the right channels. And some just found themselves here regardless of all the statutes of this country. And those who are illegal in this country, what do you think about them?
Ben, I was born in Israel and I left Israel because of the strong religious backing there. I'm a gay person as well, and a professional as well at the same time.
Yeah.
So a lot of Zimbabweans find themselves in a tough situation in Zimbabwe where there's no human rights, and let alone gay rights. So you expect them to come legally into South Africa because they're going to be stopped at the borders and asked those questions, and they're not going to be able to answer those questions. So the only way entry for them in South Africa is to jump a border. And we cannot shoot them for that because they know what they're running from. Nobody will run from their country if it was milk and honey in their country. They're running away from the country because there's a problem. And we all know ZANU-PF is a problem.
Okay, I can't say ZANU-PF is a problem or not a problem. I only know that the longest reigning governing party that side is ZANU-PF from the time of Robert Mugabe. But whatever happens in Zimbabwe, I think I had Nhlanhla Lux on the show, and Nhlanhla Lux said the Zimbabweans, or else the youth in Zimbabwe, must be able to fix their own country. I mean,
it's very sad that somebody like that would say that, because he's the head of the Soweto Parliament, and yet he's always running to the private sector to help his problems in Soweto. So that's strange for him to say that.
Yeah, okay. I mean, this is what Nhlanhla Lux said to us on this show. He said, okay, now that he left Operation Dudula, he left because Operation Dudula was opposed to all foreigners. So he said he doesn't, he doesn't support that all foreigners must go. But he says all illegal foreigners, because once we say something is illegal, then there is a criminal element in that. And the challenge is, I believe, obviously we are in the continent Africa, but as South Africans feel like now they are bearing the burdens of all the other countries in Africa.
Okay, well, let me first deal with the Nhlanhla Lux issue. Nhlanhla Lux says that he's left Operation Dudula for that reason. I find that's absolutely not fact. Nhlanhla Lux started out Operation Dudula, and his key factor was, let's get rid of all the foreigners out of South Africa. Yeah. That was his key. Then it came out that he was meeting individual business sector heads, including people like myself, where he changed his tune and said, no, only illegal foreigners must go. Then this matter was taken to court and he was forced to resign. However, he's saying all illegal foreigners must go. That is something, why isn't he coming to Sandton and going to the foreigners in Sandton and saying, all your illegal foreigners must go? Why is he focused on Africans only?
Well, I get that. In fact, there is a song or a poet that was made by Mzwakhe Mbuli that says, okay, they called it xenophobia, But Mzwakhe Mbuli said, no, I don't think this is xenophobia. This is Afrophobia.
Yes.
Because now it only targets Africans.
Black hating black.
Black hating black. But again, you must remember that we are in Africa, and perhaps we should look beyond the color. Because now when we say black hating black, then we are starting another spark which might take a negative direction as well. Instead of it looking at it in general. I'm glad that you brought yourself a passport. So let me ask you this. Do you have a permit to be in SA?
Yeah, I've got a permit. Now, a permit that I have, if you'll notice, it's a business permit that under Jonathan Rothschild,
Yeah.
that lasts for 3 years, or 4 years, 3 years, 4 years, 3 years.
Yeah.
An average African can't afford this because it costs 670,000 rands. You fly in with your private jet and they just give you the permit because you've got the money. So are you, and now they're saying Zimbabweans cannot have work in South Africa. So a lot of companies have made them redundant. And with asylum, they can't even get a banking account. So what do we do with the people that's here? So are we saying they must go back to Zimbabwe? What if that person says to you, but I'm gay? And there's no gay rights in Zimbabwe. He's got the right to stay there, to stay in South Africa. The United Nations is clear.
Okay, have you ever raised that with the court of law and say somebody might have or might be forced to leave a country like Zimbabwe? And I know that in Africa, it's not only Zimbabwe. There are other countries.
African countries, Uganda.
Yeah, I mean,
Yes.
African countries that do not recognize the right of a gay person.
That's correct.
And so have you ever raised that with the court of law and say, can you please also make room for people who are persecuted in their own native land just because of their sexual orientation?
We've not only raised it with court, we currently got court orders for Home Affairs
Yeah.
to give 90 Zimbabweans and 9 other African foreign groups asylum because of those reasons, but not only because of that.
Yeah.
You must also know that Zimbabwe is, and I'm talking about Zimbabwe now, it's run by tyrants. If you do not vote for ZANU-PF, they cut your limbs. That's happening in Zimbabwe. It's been happening for years. You need to vote for ZANU-PF.
Wait a minute.
Yes.
That means half of Zimbabwe, or at least a quarter of Zimbabweans, will be like
There's
handicapped.
hundreds of thousands of Zimbabweans that has lost their hands, their fingers, and we've got reports on this. It's not just made up, it's fact. South African government knows about it.
Yeah.
The ANC knows about it. If you don't vote for ZANU-PF, they'll terrorize you until you vote for them. So on that alone, these people are running away from Zimbabwe. But Ben, what I'm trying to say is, fix the borders in South Africa. Let's stop everybody coming in. But for those that are in South Africa now, we have to live side by side with them.
Okay, in other words, you say those who are in, legally or illegally.
Yeah, we need to
The government has to find a way of dealing with them.
dealing with them, not dealing with, integrating them properly into society as part of South Africa.
Look, recently there was that spat that happened between the Limpopo MEC and a Zimbabwean patient. I think you saw that one because it actually went viral.
The MEC was incorrect because the international human rights law makes it very clear. You have the right to free medical care wherever you are, if you cannot afford it.
No, that thing is, I understand that you have a right to have medical care wherever you are. But if you are to cross your border solely because you know that you will get better health care on the other side of the fence and for free, then how do you justify that?
Look at your Freedom Charter, look at your constitution. It says medical care should be given to everybody. And if you're crossing your border to get medical care, that means you cannot get it in your country. You've got the right to do it. In London, with the NHS, what happens is if you need a cardiovascular, or I'm a neurologist, if you need to have a tumor removed from your brain and you can't get it in London, London allows you to go to Paris to do it.
Okay, let me ask you this question. Now that you are the voice of the foreigners in South Africa, do you ever consider the feeling of the people of this country, how South Africans feel about this matter? Because, please do look at me now, because South Africans are also vocal about the foreign crisis. They call it the foreign crisis, right? And mostly they are complaining about the high influx of Zimbabweans and Nigerians and any other. But these two, they are on top of of their queries. What would you say? Like, do you care that South Africans also feel otherwise about the foreign issue?
We have to be honest about this, and we have to be real about this. Which South Africans? It's a certain sector of the society that has a problem with foreigners, and it's this and that society which we are talking about is the ones that don't have jobs. They're unemployed, and they're really struggling financially, and they are grabbing at something that they really don't understand.
Okay, yes. I actually get that. You say it's the ones who do not have a job. In other words, it's the poor of the poorest of South Africans.
The voting population of South Africa that is complaining. Those are the ones that goes out and vote.
Yeah.
Why aren't they focusing on getting themselves a proper government without corruption that will open the economy so that they can get jobs? They cannot be focusing on a couple of 100,000 Zimbabweans that's got jobs here in the food and beverage industry, hospitality industry, or as housekeepers. Are they focused on that? Because they're the same South Africans that's complaining about the foreigners. They are the same ones that will not go and work in my home in Sanders or in your homes. They won't go and work there.
We can't say with certainty that they cannot, because at one stage in South Africa, this is what happened. When you went to a filling station, the petrol attendant was a Zimbabwean. You went to, I will mention this business because there is a branch they have at Greenstone. At one stage I was living in Greenstone. Most of their employees were just Zimbabweans, right? Food lovers. What happened? Why would our business find it easy to just employ a foreigner rather than a South African person?
Ben, going back to your constitution.
Yeah.
Freedom and the Freedom Charter. Every businessman has the right to choose whoever he wants to work for them. Are you tell us you want to change the constitution and limit us? And say to us, you need to dictate who we must employ?
Yeah, but there is a message. There is a message behind that practice, because I believe it is dubious for a business like with strong muscles just to handpick mainly Zimbabweans, right, or foreigners as their employees, or give more preference to foreigners rather than saying we are going for skills. Right. So if you say to me, you spoke about our deputy president who went to another country.
To Russia, yeah.
Right. I mean, he actually went for that skill. But being a cashier, does that require a foreigner?
Let me answer that, and I know I'm going to be hated for this. South Africans just are not good at some careers. They're not good at being cashiers. They're not. I can take you now. You can go into Woolworths and you'll get.
We can't say that, my friend. But wait, before 1994, we had these business outlets, and most of our people, who were cashiers, not most, 100% were South Africans. So we can't say South Africans are not being good as cashiers.
Well, so why aren't they still in those positions?
It's because of this mentality that is now adopted, which is why South Africans then are trying to raise a voice and say, hello people, whatever is happening, we think it is injustice. Because I believe in your practice as well, as much as you are advocating for whatever that you advocate, but pursue justice. You see, Justice is just, and justice will remain truthful all the time. Because I cannot say that South Africans are not good as cashiers. I mean, I think that is an insult. It is tantamount to an insult. I mean, South Africans are not incompetent. South Africans can do it all. That's why we've got South African doctors, we've got South African teachers, we've got South Africans, I mean, in every sphere. Right. So is there anything you would like to say?
I want to say this.
Yeah.
Again, I say the food and beverage industry, the hospitality industry, as well as the market with regard to housekeepers.
Yeah.
Zimbabweans, Malawians do the job better, whether you like it or not. Whether you like it or not. On a Monday morning,
yeah,
you'll never have a Zimbabwean coming to you and saying he's ill because he had a hectic weekend. So Africans are prone to doing that, whether you like it or not. That is the reality. In those industries, Zimbabweans, Malawians are the best. And every businessman have the right to choose. And the main excuse you guys like to use, and I'm sorry not to say you guys,
it's fine.
Like to use
okay.
to say, no,
yeah.
we want to underpay the foreigners. That is not true. That is not true.
In a sense,
there's a limit. There's a bill with regard to wages in South Africa. There's a basic limit. I don't know what you call it, but there's a what do you call that bill where you cannot pay less than a certain amount of money?
I mean, right now they said it's what is this, minimum wage?
Minimum wage bill.
Yeah.
So what are they talking about? That the foreigners want to underpay them? It's not true. If you go to the Sanders area,
yeah,
the average wage for a housekeeper is 5,800 rand. That's the average.
Okay, would it be correct for someone to say, Jonathan Rothschild is speaking because he is a foreigner, and when there's nothing left in this country, you will just fly off and leave the country in whatever devastated state it will be?
Foreigners own 71% of this economy.
So in other words, you're telling me that, I mean, this country, or else the economy of this country, is in the hands of the foreigners.
Of course.
And so, foreigners are big shots in South Africa.
71% of this economy, 70% of the Johannesburg Stock Exchange is controlled by foreigners.
Wow. Oh my God. And finally, who is with you in being the voice of the foreigners?
There's a lot of organizations. The Helen Suzman Foundation, my organization. There's quite a lot of fund over. But there's something I want to touch on before we end.
Yeah.
It's got to do with the Repatriation Center in South Africa.
Yeah.
That's a very important thing, because police are abusing the rights of foreigners now by just picking them up, charging them 10,000 rand on a bribe. If they can't pay the 10,000 rand,
they take them to Lindela.
They take them to Lindela.
Yeah.
Now, Lindela is the biggest scam in South Africa. Billions of South Africans' tax funds is being looted through Lindela. It's still run by Bosasa. The guys that was running Bosasa are still running Lindela, just through different company names, and they charge government airfare and bus fare for the individuals to repatriate them. They don't only charge government for that, they also charge the individual. So if you are arrested, you are charged that bus fare. You must pay for your own bus fare. Not only did they make you pay for the bus fare, they make the embassy pay for the bus fare, and they make the South African government pay for the bus fare. For every person that's in Lindela, government is paying 3,800 rand a day for that person's for hospitality. They're not even spending 80 rand a day on that human being.
Okay.
So these monies are being looted, and the police are now given permission by Aaron Matsalede to arrest people on the street. That's not fair, because if you can't afford to pay 10,000 rand, you get taken to Lindela.
Okay, so I mean, are you trying to tell me that a person like myself, if I can go to any country in Europe, whether documented or not, I will be doing justice to that community or that nation?
You've got the right to apply for refugee status and asylum when you're in the country. you're not if you go to London now
Yeah.
and you found your way into the country illegally,
Yeah.
they're going to give you a temporary refugee status until you fix your documentation.
Okay. And then have you tried perhaps engaging Zimbabwean government about the crisis in Zimbabwe?
I will not. I will not engage ZANU PF.
You would rather bash the South African government?
I will not engage ZANU PF and a lot of people, because it's like talking to Osama bin Laden. It's exactly the same. So how could you sit down with somebody like that? I will not do that.
You will not do that.
It's the ANC's responsibility to fight ZANU PF. And while the ANC is not doing that, we're going to constantly have this problem.
And then which political parties do you think they heed to your call?
EFF and the GA are saying exactly the same. Let us fix the situation what we have at the moment. And we are not deporting anybody. We're not deporting anybody.
You say there should be not deportation, and then what about the outcry that there is a high crime?
What we need, again, there's a report that was a report which I paid for, that came out and said very clearly, foreigners are not responsible for the crimes. It's a minute amount of crime that is done by foreigners. The majority of crime is done by South Africans.
I don't know about that. In fact, I think I still need to get the stats.
Yes.
Because stats will tell perhaps a different story from what you are telling me. Because statistics might come and say, yes, South Africans, we've always had crime, but not this high back in the day. And now I think crime has also taken another turn.
We're also sitting with another problem where in Swaziland it's a big political problem, and there's actually more Swatis in South Africa than Zimbabweans. But they are gelling in as Zulus. Do you understand? So we are not. So it's very difficult to do these stats.
Okay, I am a Swati myself, right?
Wow, thank you.
Yeah, I am a Swati,
yes.
But I'm a Swati born and bred in South Africa,
yes.
Because there are so many of us.
Yeah, but now.
But Swazis in their nature, right? They do not constitute a big population. So to say there are more Swazis in South Africa than there are Zimbabweans, I don't think that is true.
There's apparently 1.9 million Swatis in South Africa.
1.9 million when the actual population of Swazis in Swaziland is about 1.2. So exactly what is happening?
I would like to look
because
at
remember, you also have this. In fact, the portion of Mpumalanga, even Gauteng and KZN,
yes.
has people who are descendants of the Swazis,
yes.
and they are South Africans.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So you can't call them foreigners?
No, they are not foreigners because they are South Africans.
You understand? So why would you call a Zimbabwean a foreigner?
It's because
the Shona, the Ndebele. There's what's the two groups in Zimbabwe? It's Shona.
Shona and Ndebele.
You get Ndebeles in South Africa.
They differ, my friend.
No. So but you cannot say that for the Swatis and different for the Zimbabweans.
Are you saying that what you call people like the Ndebeles from Zimbabwe, then automatically they just get the green card to be South Africans just because there is a tribe called Ndebeles here?
Yes. EFF leader has stated the borders should be open to Zimbabweans. Borders should be open to Zimbabweans. Zimbabweans are considered as our brothers and sisters here in South Africa. That's Julius Malema's stand. Why is he saying that? He's saying it because exactly that. Their roots is here. Why would you want to call them a foreigner? I'm a foreigner. I hold a British passport. I'm a foreigner. Fight us. Don't fight your African brothers.
Well, that's it. I think I'm glad, and thank you very much for coming. And there is a commotion from outside, and
absolutely.
Actually, we had to overlook that and continue with what we are doing. But I'm glad. But maybe before we close, what do you think AfriForum stands for when it comes to this matter?
Look, AfriForum is an organization that is now coming and fighting for human rights.
For human rights.
Human rights. They want human rights. They're fighting corruption, and I believe AfriForum will not allow Zimbabweans to be deported from South Africa.
Do you have direct contact with AfriForum by any chance?
I have one of the council's details. Yes, I do.
I would really love to have AfriForum on this platform, just to hear them, because I mean, we know AfriForum, and obviously AfriForum is doing a lot of what you are doing, taking the government to court.
Of course. Yes.
How many court cases do you have now against the government?
Currently, we're running with 9. We've got 4.
9 court cases.
Yes. And we have judgments in 4, which is being appealed.
And you said Nhlanhla Lux,
and we've won all. We've won all the cases.
And then you've said that Nhlanhla Lux was ordered to leave Operation Dudula.
Yeah, we cannot discuss this because the matter is still
sub judice.
Yeah. But yes, there is a court action against Nhlanhla Lux.
So with 9 court cases, that should be an expensive activity.
Yeah, we've with our CSI, corporate social investment. Yeah. We've already spent in the region of 12 million rands.
12 million rands, and then who is funding you?
It's our CSI. No, I've got a big company, so it's our CSI budget that's being used for that.
Wow. Well, I mean, I said AfriForum is known for taking matters to court. Yes. Yeah, and I would really love to have a word with AfriForum so that we actually get to know them and never paint AfriForum in our heads, because I think we've
as
got
a white supremacist organization,
and also like a pro-Africana organization, you know. So that is why I would really love. We did send a proposal to AfriForum so that we can have them on the platform. And let us have AfriForum. Now that you know us, you have been here, and you know someone, you might even tell them that the Benster Show is a podcast. Obviously, we are still growing, and we are using whatever we have, but we're also giving voice to the people.
In closing, I would like to say that those are organizations you should have, but you should also invite people like Gates and McKenzie to hear the toxicity that's out there towards foreigners. Because this man is just absolute toxic. He's talking about turning off the life support machines from foreigners at the hospitals. So you need to also you should invite him and to see where our political climate is going, what direction political parties are taking.
We will definitely look for him. And right now we have had a number of guests already on this show, and we'll still continue.
Thank you.
And we will definitely call everybody, and we will try harder not to take side, but try to get to the gist of whatever matter it is that we are addressing on the table.
Very important, what we have to mention is Zimbabwe. There's a problem in Zimbabwe. We know there's a problem in Zimbabwe.
Yeah.
Zimbabweans don't choose to jump into a river with crocodile-infested rivers to come to South Africa because they just want to come to South Africa.
So
they're running away from a problem. We need to accept them in South Africa as part of South Africa.
Well, thank you very much. And also with that commotion on the background, which is something out of our control, but we are glad. We thank Jonathan Rothschild for joining us today. Thank you for watching. Please do subscribe on our YouTube page. Follow us on Twitter, follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and all other social networks. And until next.